Hi, and welcome to Style Thoughts by Rita, and welcome to this video where I'm talking about visual interest, which is the number one most foundational, most important, most powerful concept in personal style. And it's so much fun to make a foundational video like this because if you've worked on your style to any extent, you know what I'm talking about and you're gonna understand it as I talk through the video. But it's so powerful and so helpful to actually have a term to describe this concept, and also to have this list of all of the different ways that you actually can add visual interest to an outfit, and to be able to approach it from this lens of okay, what's missing here is visual interest. I need to add some. How can I do that? And that's what this video is going to help you with. Visual interest is any component of your overall look that is visually interesting to look at, something that draws or holds attention in any way. Thinking about the visual interest of your outfit, you can imagine as the volume control on your outfit, basically how loud or how quiet your look is. On this channel, I talk a lot about my own essence system, and I also talk about how to create outfits using seasonal color approaches or the Kibe system or whatever. But visual interest is really at the center of all of your sartorial decision making, regardless of what your essence is or your desired aesthetic or your Kibe type, right? It's just a really important and powerful tool for everybody. There are two specific types of cases where I think it's very applicable. These are comments, messages, and questions I get from my clients all the time. So I want to spotlight these. Number one common concern is people who feel their outfits are really boring, but they don't know how to make them more interesting without changing the entire look, the entire feeling, the entire vibe, right? So maybe what you prefer right now to wear are outfits that is a pair of jeans, a nice pair of jeans and a cute t-shirt and a cute pair of sneakers. And you're okay, but this is kind of boring. This doesn't really represent who I am, and it doesn't feel cool or interesting enough. But if I try to look on the internet for fashion or Instagram inspo, it feels like I have to change my entire being, my entire essence, and just my entire approach to fashion. And the point with the visual interest strategy is that you don't need to change your being or your preferred aesthetic. You just need to kind of turn up the volume and create outfits that are more interesting, so you can create outfits that are still very relaxed, elegant, and minimal, but that are a lot more interesting just through the use of more interesting shapes, textures, patterns, colors, accessories. And we're going to talk a lot in this video about all the different ways you can add this visual interest. So you don't need to change everything about you. You can just do the things you like, but in a more interesting way. And then the second common fashion concern I hear from people is well, I know what I like, which is this specific aesthetic inspiration I have, but it requires a lot of layers, and so I can't achieve the effect I want to achieve unless I can wear a lot of layers, and it doesn't work in the summer, or it doesn't work in my climate, whatever, right? And here again, I say layers is just one way of adding this visual interest, visual complexity. I'm going to show you in this video how instead of using layers, what you can do is choose pieces that have interesting shapes or textures or colors or patterns and combine them in unusual ways, or bring in accessories. So even when you have outfits that are a lot more bare, showing just a lot more skin and a lot less covered up, you can still have this impact of a very visually interesting and exciting outfit. So again, visual interest is any component of your overall look that is just interesting, that draws or holds people's attention. You can think about it as the volume setting on your outfit, what is there to look at? So before we talk about how to add visual interest, let's talk about what is minimal visual interest. To me, that is outfits with really simple shapes, really simple neutral dark colors, so there's not a lot of decoration, and they're very conventional shapes like shorts and a shirt, pants and a top, right, in very neutral colors and neutral silhouette. Visual interest, of course, depends on context, so outfits that we are visually used to are the ones that be less interesting to us. So if everybody around you wears a zip-up hoodie, that's something that is perceived as a neutral garment, whereas if you're in a setting where people tend to wear blazers, a zip-up hoodie feels visually interesting because it's something new and fresh. right? So if you think about it, when skinny jeans were new to the world, it was like, oh wow, wearing skinny jeans was such a statement. Then wide leg jeans became a statement, but now it's like both wide leg and skinny jeans are basically normal, so they're both perceived as more or less neutral. If what's perceived as neutral are kind of conventional items in neutral colors with neutral silhouettes and neutral decoration, if we want to add visual interest, we can do that by adding any of these specific elements. The first element I want to talk about is color. Color is an amazing, really powerful, easy way to add visual interest to any outfit. An obvious way to add color is just to buy a colorful garment. So if you want to start anywhere, you can choose kind of like a pop of color approach where you take a garment you already like t-shirt, cardigan, dress, and you just buy it in a brighter color and you wear it as you would wear your non-brightly colored thing. Boom, suddenly the outfit is already more interesting. You can also add this pop of color by adding an accessory in a bright color like shoes or a hat or a bag, again in an unexpected color that visually pops against the background of your more neutral outfit. If you want your color to be visually louder, then you just want to bring in literally more color into the outfit. One easy way to do that is to wear monochrome looks, so when you have the same color on top and on bottom, you're literally just bringing more color which adds more visual interest. Another combination is to do the same color but of different intensities. So for example, you could do like a deep brown and then kind of a caramel beige top, or you could do a bright orange pant with a softer orange shirt, right? So you're still getting this effect of the bright color, but the different shades add a bit more interest because it's like, ooh, something unexpected. Another solution is to have items that are of the same brightness intensity, but of different colors. Like I have a really bright pink and a really bright blue together. So again, the intensity is the same, but the color is different, creating that visual interest. And of course, there's like so many different ways to combine colors. One really easy go-to in fashion is to understand what complementary colors are, which are like opposites on the color wheel. So like yellow and purple or blue and orange, and combining different shades of these colors together in a complementary outfit can be super interesting. So that's color, and I feel like color is just a really easy way always to add visual interest. The next step is pattern. I have a whole video about how to use patterns based on your essence. So now I just want to say that with patterns, you can also think how visually interesting is the pattern itself, right? So you can use patterns that are simpler and more quiet, and you can use them as kind of a more neutral piece in the outfit to add just a touch of interest. For example, just a pair of pinstriped pants with a simple top. Or you can choose more visually complex patterns where it's like the pattern has more going on, or there's multiple patterns in the garment itself, or there's some like other color, or there's some other design detail. So it's like not only is there a pattern, but there's also something else. And again, like you can just think about it as a scale from like how visually interesting is the pattern, how visually interesting is the garment, how much do I personally want to add to my outfit, what is this adding? Beyond pattern, we also have texture. So instead of having, for example, a matte skirt, we can have something that has sheer inset panels, or instead of a regular cotton pants, we can have like satin shiny pants, or we can do something that has some sort of crochet texture or just other kind of like bumpy texture, right? So visually the texture, even if it's a simple item like a beige top, if it has an interesting texture, that texture is creating the visual interest. Shape is also an obvious way for us to add visual interest to an outfit, right? So we might be used to a regular long sleeve t-shirt, but like, oh, what if we layer kind of a longer, like a short long sleeve thing over a tank top? Or what if we take a regular blouse, but we have some sort of puff sleeves that are really exaggerated on it? Or what if we take a dress but there's a cutout on the side, right? So there's just a lot of different ways for the shape of the garment to be a little bit unusual and to adding the visual interest. And again, here going back to what we talked about in the beginning, some things that are really on trend and conventional like may not seem as loud even if they're bold. Like for example, cutouts on dresses are just really big right now. So even though it can feel quite risque to have this cutout on the side, it's also something that adds, I think, a medium touch of visual interest. The next step to add visual interest is decoration. And And this is just about choosing items that are more visually complex. So instead of like, oh, I'm just gonna buy a blouse, I'm gonna look for a blouse that has some sort of ruching on the sleeves and has a big tie on the side and has something interesting on the neckline. But or like if I'm looking at a printed sweater, I'm going to look for something that has a red edge along the sides just to add that extra. Or pants that have some sort of seam down the front visually. Or if I have a floral jumpsuit, I'm going to look for something that has an additional ruffle on top of it, right? So it's kind of like we take this interesting item and then we have some extra design feature that you can point to that's like, ooh, that makes it a little bit more interesting. And this is the one that I want to stay on a little bit because I think that there's so much you can do in terms of choosing interesting shapes. I mean, you can get something like really out there, like these pants that have the ties on the front, but it could just be as simple as an extra ruffle on the bottom of the skirt or an extra little seam on the sides or on the collar of your coat, right? So there's so many different decorations that can be added to our garments to make them just a little bit more interesting. And this is something that's really important to keep in mind when you are shopping for something new, because sometimes like I feel like people have too many simple things in their wardrobe, and then you just have to make a different decision when you're shopping, and you have to be like, I'm gonna look for a coat, but I wanted to have one or two interesting details. So it's not just the blue coat, but maybe it's a blue coat with these little white tabs, or maybe it has special buttons that I like, or maybe I'm gonna choose a blouse that has an interesting ruffle, right? That's just something about looking for that visually interesting thing in the store. Layers, of course, are a well-known way to add visual interest because you're just adding additional complexity. Even for summer weight fabrics, you can do a lot of layering by layering kind of transparent fabrics or crocheted knits, or you can layer long sleeve tops under short sleeve tops, right? There's so much you can do with this to get really creative in terms of combining colors and textures and fabrics and shapes, and playing around with outfits and combinations you haven't tried before. So that's like a way you can add visual interest to something that's relatively simple by itself. If you combine it with something else, suddenly it's an exciting combo. And then of course, in addition to clothes, we have accessories. So one thing you can do with accessories is to pick up an existing theme in the outfit and continue it by having like a bag or a shoe or a hat that emphasizes that color or that vibe or that theme in some way to like kind of just make the outfit a bit more interesting and louder. Or you can choose some sort of accessory like a shoe or a bag in a contrast color. So it's the unexpected element that adds that visual interest. You're like, wait a second, you know, what's that neon yellow doing in this outfit? And I'm not gonna dwell on this in the video, but there's of course like infinite amounts of also modifications you can make through jewelry, or you can do that through makeup or through hairstyling to kind of put the finishing touches, right? You can experiment with different bracelets or earrings or even belts or scarves in your hair or hats, right? There's so many different touches you can take to kind of complete the outfit and make it more or less interesting. And those things can be smaller, they can be really big, right? Like you could add a pair of huge statement sunglasses and big earrings and suddenly something becomes a lot more interesting. I know like you've heard the concept of like using color and layers before, but I think what's really helpful is to understand like why do we do this? And we do all of this to achieve the same effect, to make the outfit like more visually interesting. And when you have that term in mind, it really helps you analyze what makes good outfits good, right? So if we look at these outfits from Instagram and these fancy well-dressed people, we can see that there's so much interesting in their outfit. Like maybe they have unusual shapes, they're using patterns, they're using bright colors, they're using accessories, they're using layering. So they're using all of these different elements all together at once to create an outfit that's like super interesting. So when you have a photo of it, it really pops and there's just so much that your eye can be drawn to. But I really want to emphasize that it doesn't need to be this like over-the-top Instagram aesthetic to be very visually interesting. Here's just some outfits I found on the Banana Republic website, and you can see that the pieces they've styled, like a tank dress or just a romper, are actually pretty simple, but through adding the different colors, through adding interesting shoes and belts and jewelry, right, they elevate the whole outfit because it's so much more interesting. Rather than just it being a tank dress, it's suddenly like, oh, but there's a necklace and there's bracelets and there's shoes. So there's just visually so much more to look at. And it's just a thing to keep in mind that like you can always add things to make your outfits more interesting. At the same time, I really want to stress that it's like there's no correct amount of visual interest that you should have in your outfit. I think that's the thing sometimes when we compare ourselves to people on like Pinterest or just people with a different style, we can get confused, right? It's up to you. Maybe for you, like having a print on your t-shirt and just like some cute hair clips, that's really like enough, and you don't want it to be more than that. Or maybe you want to add more and you're like, okay, I want like a neon contrast color. Or maybe you're like, I want unusual shapes and colors and accessories, like, right? It's up to you to learn how to use this like volume control in a way that makes you feel good about the outfits you're putting together. So now I want to go over like 2 ways that you can use the concept of visual interest to make your outfits more interesting. The first is just to add things to make basics more exciting. So if we go to this picture of the all orange outfit, right? We have an orange top, an orange shirt, orange earrings. That's already quite a lot. So maybe you don't need to make this outfit more interesting. Maybe for you, just wearing it with a pair of simple sandals, that's all good. But I'm like, okay, maybe what we could do is add some bright colors to it to make it more exciting. So we'll add some like yellow or orange tank top underneath, and we'll add these yellow sneakers, right? So same intensity, but different colors. Suddenly the outfit is popping even more. Or maybe instead we'll go do the complementary color and we'll take a green pair of sandals and a green bag. So it's still very minimal, but now there's this interesting thing going on where the colors are clashing. Or it's like we could take the simple orange outfit and we could add a lot of interesting stuff to it. Like we could add this red crop top with this super weird eye graphic and it has sparkles on it. And we add these glam red shoes and this red bag. So it's this like orange red color story. And there's just suddenly a lot going on in the whole look. And it's up to you, right? What you want to do with the shorts and the shirt. But the point is just like you can actually modify your outfits a lot just by adding the different pieces to them. And it does take practice to imagine this, right? So here's, for example, a very simple romper I like that I saw styled in 2 very different ways on 2 websites. One is the super glam way with this big hat and these fancy heels and these fancy bracelets and the big earrings, right? It looks very glamorous. Whereas the other styling is super edgy and tough with these like chunky shoes and this big bag and this kind of mullet hairstyle and edgy makeup that the model is rocking, right? So of course that's quite a simple piece, and then it can be styled in wildly different directions just by adding things that have very, very interesting characteristics in each case, right? So I feel like it does take some practice, and it's about like your creativity and just the imagination. But at the same time, I do feel like there can be a limit sometimes on how interesting you can make things. So a big thing if you want to add more visual interest to your wardrobe is in the shopping phase to think like, okay, what would a more interesting version of this be? So if I was just gonna buy a new blue shirt, I could think, well, instead of just buying a really simple blue button down, I could think about what am I trying to do with this, you know? And for example, using essence or using whatever, like, oh, maybe instead of a blue shirt, I could have a blue dress that's really floaty. Or I could have this kind of more sexy, trendy blue shirt that has ruffles on the front. Or maybe I could have a satiny blue shirt that I can wear with a matching skirt, right? There's a lot of possibilities that are still in this kind of like gentle light blue shirt outfit that happens when you like approach your shopping from this more strategic perspective of thinking like, I need it to be more interesting. So in summary, I feel like this video is just a really great list of all the ways you can add the visual interest to your outfits. I know that's something people wonder a lot about because you're like, this isn't enough, I want to do more, how can I do more? And sometimes it can feel like, oh, I don't know, like how can I do more? Ultimately, it's either the decorations, the texture, the color, the shape, or the accessories are how you put things together. Like those are the options. So if you want to add more visual interest to your outfits, you just have to pick one of those things and practice doing it. Okay, thanks so much for watching and let me know what you think. Bye!